The state government is still deciding whether it will hold an inquiry into abuse in the Catholic Church. I spoke a short time ago to Attorney General Robert Clark. Robert Clark, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
You've just heard Paul Lyons' story. 2 weeks ago you said that you were still receiving advice on whether to hold an inquiry into the abuse in the Ballarat region. Have you made a decision yet?
Well, it is a very moving story, and it's unfortunately similar to a number of stories that one hears. I'm still in the process of obtaining advice on the options that are available to the government. At the moment, I'm not in a position to rule anything in or anything out, but it is an issue that we're taking very seriously.
And what sort of advice are you seeking? What sort of issues are you grappling with? Is it the size of the inquiry, or what it would cost, or who could be involved?
Well, there's a range of issues in any proposal for an inquiry, including the potential terms of reference, what the objectives of the inquiry would be, what the legal form of it would be, what past practice and precedent has been in relation to inquiries such as this, and also sort of the factual issues around the particular instances of abuse and what has occurred here in Victoria. And all of those are relevant considerations, and as I say, I'm seeking further advice on them. I'm considering the material that's been put to me by other parents who've been affected by abuse, and on that basis I'll be in a position to weigh up what's been put to me.
Who would make the decision? Would it have to go to Cabinet?
Any decision would be a whole of government decision. As I say, I can't rule anything in or anything out. My task at the moment is to gather the relevant information on the basis of which a decision can be made.
And when do you hope to make a decision?
Well, clearly seeking to get both the legal advice and any further factual information that is needed over the coming weeks.
The State Labor MP Anne Barker has been quite vocal in her calls for an inquiry. I understand you met with her this week. Was her argument convincing?
Well, Anne arranged for me to meet with Chrissy and Anthony Foster, who a family has been experienced some horrible instances of abuse in the Oakleigh area, and I met with them and a number of their supporters, including Anne Barker, and we talked about their experiences and the impact that the abuse had had on their family, and we talked about the sort of things I mentioned earlier about what they would like to see out of an inquiry, what form they would like an inquiry to take, but possible terms of reference, and also some discussion about what had happened in other parts of the world. And that was a very helpful meeting, and we had a very constructive and positive discussion.
So it sounds like you're leaning towards holding an inquiry. You're taking it seriously. Well,
I'm certainly taking the issue seriously, Josie. As I said earlier, I'm not in a position to rule anything in or anything out, but I'm wanting to take all the factual and legal information on board, and then I'll be in a position to give an account to government, on which government can make a decision.
There's estimates that up to 30 men have committed suicide as a direct result of suffering that abuse. Does that figure alone justify holding an inquiry?
Well, there's a wide range of criteria involved in any decision about an inquiry. I've touched on some of the considerations. Another consideration is what alternative options might be available.
Like what?
Well, potentially, for example, is there scope for a further coroner's investigation? As you may know, there's been amendments to the coroner's legislation in recent years to give the coroner greater capacity to conduct investigations on a systemic basis. That's certainly one option that needs to be looked at.
On the issue of sentencing, as we heard in that story, many victims don't believe that Robert Best was sentenced for long enough. You've set up a survey on that issue. What sort of results have you been getting? We've
had a very strong response to the survey. Many thousands of responses have come in both online and through the printed version of the survey. We're very heartened by the willingness of Victorians to take the time and effort to let us have their views on sentencing. We committed to seek the views of all Victorians as part of our sentencing reform initiatives prior to the election, and this survey is a key part of that process.
As I'm sure you're aware, there's been some very public criticism of the survey from top levels of the judiciary. Will the survey results actually influence laws?
These survey results are intended to give Victorians the opportunity to have a say about sentencing, and we regard that as very important. We regard it as very appropriate. So the community are entitled to have their say, and this survey is an important opportunity for the community to have their say.
But what are you doing to rectify the issue that people can return again and again to the website and just sit on it all day if they like? Won't that skew the results?
Look, that's a completely spurious argument. We've got no evidence to suggest there's been any widespread attempt to subvert or undermine the survey results. People are taking this very seriously. For someone who completes the full survey, they may be taking 15 to 20 minutes to do it online. People are completing the printed survey results. Most Victorians are taking this survey very seriously and appropriately.
Just regarding the Julian Knight case, your government's promised to keep him behind bars even though he's due for parole soon. Do you intend to write new laws just to keep one man behind bars?
Well, as we've said, we believe very few Victorians would like to see Julian Knight released from prison. The government is committed to do whatever is within our power to keep him behind bars, and that's what we intend to do between now and when he might become eligible for parole in 2014.
So that means a law?
That means that we believe that he should remain behind bars, and we intend to do everything within our power to ensure that occurs.
Is it appropriate for politicians to intervene? I mean, he was sentenced, and he wasn't sentenced to life behind bars.
It's appropriate for Parliament on behalf of the community to set the legal framework that we believe should be applicable. As I said, there are a range of options by which that can be done, and between now and 2014 we are looking at all available options to do whatever is within our power to ensure that he remains behind bars.
Robert Clark, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Josie.